The world is here. The world is here.
Hello, my name is Elvis Sequeira.
मैं हूं मलकीत सिंह।
Hi, my name is Sarthak.
आप सुन रहे हैं ग्रेटर नोएडा का अपना सामुदायिक रेडियो स्टेशन सुनो शारदा 90.8 FM।
The world is here.
The world is here. The world is here. The world is here at Sharda University. Where are you?
Now the time has come for the last technical session, and the session we all have been waiting for. The session by Mr. Prahlad Kakkar, the ad guru, the internationally renowned filmmaker. And to take this session forward, my colleague, my senior, my mentor, Professor Sanjeev Sood, will be taking things forward. He'll be moderating this session. But before I hand it over to him, I would request our tech team to play a small little AV that has been made by our students on Prahlad Kakkarji.
Prahlad Kakkar is an Indian ad film director. He is known for his work on the famous Pepsi TV commercial with Amitabh Bachchan and Sachin Tendulkar, and his famous Kama Sutra ads. Mr. Kakkar entered the world of advertising in 1971 as an accounts executive at ASP Delhi. After a year, he was transferred to the company's Bombay office. In 1972, he rejoined the renowned feature director Shyam Benegal as an assistant director for films such as Ankur, Manthan and Bhumika. He founded Genesis Film Production Private Limited, one of India's leading ad filmmaking agencies, in 1977. Clients of the company include Nestle, PepsiCo, Britannia, Levers, among others. His wide-ranging ventures are a testament to his complex, creative, innovative and driven spirit. He founded the Lakadives, a scuba diving school, in 1995. He has also been involved in restaurant design and started several eateries over the years, such as Casa Amor, Sarson da Saag and the Tea Centre. Prahlad Kakkar is also the co-founder of Reef Watch Marine Conservation. He plays an important role as the chief advisor and trustee of Natura Outdoor Education Trust. In 2000, he received the prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award from the IAAFA for his contribution to advertising and film art.
Thank you, tech team, for sharing this presentation, and very, very thank you for making these presentations. The SMFE students have done a great job, I think. Professor Sood, I think it is time for you to take over because I don't want to keep my participants waiting. Over to you, Sanjeev sir.
Hi, Prahlad.
Hi, how are you, Sanjeev?
Wow, I didn't know about you so much. You know, our students have researched and they have found out. So here I'm seeing the paradigm shift in your cinematic journey.
No, not really. I
Yeah,
mean,
because-
you know, the one, what do you call, misnomer that they have is that I made the Kama Sutra ads. I would have loved to make the Kama Sutra ads, but unfortunately I didn't. Though Pooja Bedi worked in my office for a whole year. She went on to make the Kama Sutra ad, but we had nothing to do with it. We just watched from the side and drooled.
Well, we can excuse our students for that, but then I think they have researched you well. But here I'm seeing the paradigm shift in your cinematic journey. To scuba diving, to restaurant design, several eateries. So I think you're the best person to kind of guide our students and take us to the journey and the paradigm shift in, mediascape. What's your take on that?
Well, the thing is that today, especially with the kind of technologies that are there at our fingertips, it is actually a very young profession. Everybody who is above 40 needs to go back to school. Because whatever they knew, whatever they were familiar with, and everything else that people consume and the way they consume it is, I'm afraid, it's all theory. Like all professors, everybody talks that we must do this, we must do that, etc., etc. But the real factor is that the consumption and the technological breakthroughs that we've made and the changing landscape of the way we are going to consume media and the way we are going to produce media are going to be like, it's a very young world. And the kids today have the advantage of having grown up with a computer or having been born with a phone. So your entire technology is in your hand actually. And nobody seems to realize this, but the power of an Android phone today in one hand is what NASA had when they put the first man on the moon. And it is the same amount of power that you actually control with one hand. The fact is that most of us at my age and people of my, my colleagues and peers are still struggling with trying to cope with how to deal with media. Now, everybody thinks that it's all about technology, it's all about this. I'm going to put it very simply, especially to the kids today. Technology and the digital media is nothing but a language. It is exactly like a language like Sanskrit or like French or like Japanese or like whatever it is. By the time you translate this language, it can be translated into the way you consume it. The consumer consumes it in his mother tongue. What is your mother tongue? Have you ever asked yourself that is the mother tongue what the government determines what your mother tongue is? But what is really your mother tongue? It's a very small litmus test. What language do you dream in? Okay, so the language that you dream in is your mother tongue. The language that we conduct our business in most of the time in this country, is in English. The present government is desperately trying to change it into Hindi, but the South is resisting because that is not the mother tongue. Their mother tongue is Tamil or Telugu or whatever else have you. So unless we respect the fact that your dream, the language that you dream in, and the language of your dreams is your real mother tongue. And for men, of course, the second mother tongue is what language do you fight with your wife in? So the language that you actually fight with your wife in is your second mother tongue. So that is the first thing that comes to your mouth the moment you're actually fighting with somebody. So what comes most naturally is what is most consumable as far as you're concerned. Today, young people dream in Android dreams. I mean, there's a brilliant film which changed all our lives about 15, 20 years ago, made by a chap called Ridley Scott. It's called Blade Runner. And it was about the future. And it is based on a book called Do Robots Dream Android Dreams? Or of Android Sheep. It's partly that. But Blade Runner was based on that. And Blade Runner, it took a lot of projections from Ridley Scott 20 years ago. And I suggest that every student of cinema should compulsorily see Blade Runner because it will, today you will take it for granted. But at the time we saw it 20 years ago, it changed our lives. Because it suddenly turned around and told us, hello, this is the shape of what it's going to be. They predicted things like what would happen in the future because of global warming. They predicted things like What would happen to cities like LA? Because in terms of weather change, in terms of climate, in terms of what would actually be there. They predicted the fact that cars would not travel on the road anymore. They would also travel in the air. And they predicted a whole lot of things, including the shape of the glasses that you drank from. There was so much detailing in that film that it was mind-boggling, because every time you see the film, you see something totally different. So that is the kind of layering that it had. Today, a lot of our kids take the digital language for granted because they are so familiar with it. A lot of people of my generation are struggling with it. We are still on top of it because one thing has not changed as far as telling of stories is concerned and consumption of stories is concerned. And what does not change is storytelling. Because if you don't have a story to tell, it does not matter how superior technology is. It doesn't matter because nobody's listening. Nobody's interested if you don't have an interesting story to tell. So that is one aspect of advertising, of television, of feature films, of the new age media, whatever you might say. If you don't have a story to tell, if it is not unique, if it is not identifiable, if people don't relate to it, then you left them cold. And they will switch off. And today, the propensity for people to switch off is so great because there's such an incredible choice at the end of a remote that your attention span, which has been actually scientifically calculated, is exactly 6 seconds. If you lose engagement with your audience for 6 seconds, you lost them forever because they switch channels, they switch to something else, if nothing else, they switch to, Tinder, as far as the young are concerned. So they can always resort back to Tinder. But the point is that, therefore, if you do not have stories which you can engage with, and if you do not have stories which relate to people in the way that they live their lives today, then you're going to be lost. And COVID has actually accelerated. Let me tell you something. COVID is a destroyer in a lot of ways. But so is technology. Technology is a disruptor. COVID is also a disruptor. So what is the positive that has come out of COVID? Is that suddenly it has jump-started the way you consume in the future today. So what would have happened normally in 5 years has happened in 3 months. So COVID has actually disrupted the way you consume, the way you produce, and the way you're limited to what you're going to be able to do with the facilities at your hand, and how well or badly you can do that, and how well or badly can you tell your stories. And it will all depend on how well you tell your stories. So I'm going to take you back. I'm not going to take you forward. The forward thing is everybody knows. Everybody knows what Android is. Everybody knows what digital is. Everybody, the young people today, especially the students, they know more than actually the professors do. The professors are only theorizing. The students are actually living in the moment. And therefore, has to be a mentorship. Like Professor Ujjwal said, that the time has come to stop being a teacher, to stop being a boss, to stop turning around and saying, I know more than you do because I'm standing on this podium and therefore nobody will ask me an indirect or direct question which I cannot answer because it's embarrassing for me. So just shut up and listen to what I'm saying. It's over. If you do not engage with your students as mentor and mentee, and the journey is for both. And believe me, as a mentor for many years, because that's what I've been doing in my office, I don't teach anybody anything. I just mentor them. And the fact is that who has it benefited more than the student? It's benefited me. I've learned more from my students than they have learned from me because I can only teach them a craft that I'm familiar with. I can only teach them how to spin yarns and stories. I can only teach them to read the newspaper every morning, which they don't do. You know why the kids today don't read the newspaper? Have you ever thought about it? They don't trust them. They don't believe that they're telling the truth. They believe that every newspaper, every television channel, every media channel is today bought over by somebody or another. It's a lobby group. And therefore, they can only tell you a part of the truth which they want to tell you and not the whole truth as it exists. So therefore, what do kids do today? They're on the net. They're on the net 3-4 hours a day trying to figure out what is the truth. Because organized media in this country especially and in around the world has lost its credibility because they have been sold out. And either a big conglomerate has bought the media house and therefore has its own version of the news, or the government has threatened the media with dire consequences, so they toe the line and only give you what the government wants you to consume. Now, the kids today are young enough and brave enough and fearless enough not to get intimidated by something like the government or something like large media houses. So they have found the area of digital, engagement far more, shall we say, satisfying than anything that organized media is doing them. And when they compare what they've actually gleaned from the net to what is being said on the media, they realize that it is not the full picture. It is only part of the picture. And that is why there's so many digital news, things which have now are vying for attention and credibility, like the print, for instance, who turn around and say, we are independent. We are not owned by anybody, we are not governed by anybody, and we are underground. So eventually, real truth in today's world and real stories of today's world will all be underground. Nothing will be official. And in China today, which is one of the largest censorships, including Iran, who we just heard of, they monitor everything that is being consumed by their consumers. They found so many ways to actually bypass that firewall. China has spent so much money and time and effort to firewall what is not desirable as far as the government is concerned to its consumption. But what they've done is one thing, and which is very important, and I think we've missed out on that and we haven't understood it, is that the data that the consumer offers you in return for logging on to your channel and listening to you belongs to the country of origin. It is not for sale in the world. It is not for sale to America, to China, to Russia, to anybody else. It is first protected as the property of India. So the data about Indian consumption, Indian consumers, Indian markets, Indian sensibilities, Indian storytelling, Indian movies, etc., 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 Indian network, OTT platforms are all going to be should be the property of the Indian nation, not the property of the government, not the property of some secret intelligence collecting service, but of the government, of the nation, the collective nation. And that is what China has actually implemented today as far as data collection is concerned of its people. They will not allow anybody else to have access to their national database. That is one right thing that they've done in terms of, in all this censorship, in all the big brothers watching the whole works. See, digitalization in various ways and various guises actually allows people to come into your homes, into your minds, and actually find out, it's mining data to find out what motivates you. What AI today is actually going to turn on, so how do you consume media? How do you consume biscuits? How do you consume necessities? What is your brand loyalties? What is your real thinking? So the whole ballgame has changed. And the point is that people of my age and my generation know the theories. They know what is right and wrong. They know which way to look at. But we are not trained to speak that language yet. until we go back to school and start learning the language that the kids are speaking. They're speaking a completely different language. I look at my children and they're talking to me and I'm saying, are you listening to what I'm saying? Because I'm talking something important. And they're SMSing with both fingers on their phone. And I'm saying, are you SMSing or are you listening to me? She said, I'm doing both. She says, who are you SMSing? I said, I'm SMSing my girlfriend. She said, then what are you listening to me? She said, I'll repeat exactly what you said in the last 5 minutes because you repeated yourself 10 times. So, it's multitasking, it's familiarity with the technology. I'm still using my index finger to bloody well type out my messages. Just imagine, they're doing it with both hands and not even looking at the keyboard. And they know exactly what they're talking about and they're listening to me. At least so they say. Because I'm a fossil as far as they're concerned. But storytelling has not changed. So for all students of media and all students of advertising, if your product does not have a story to tell, you have no engagement. So it's not the specs of the product. It's not the specs of the car. It is not how big the engine is and how big the wheel is and what a great ride it's going to give you. It's what is the story behind the car. What is the way you use this car which other people do not know how to use. So there was a film many, many years ago about a lunatic asylum where there was an advertising profession who sent to the lunatic asylum and he's talking to all these lunatics. And somehow he realizes that only the lunatics seem to be completely negative to propaganda. So they're pure. So they only tell the truth. So they form an advertising agency in the lunatic asylum and they pitch for a car manufacturer like a Ferrari. And so the ad went as, the thing is, that you definitely won't get laid in the Ferrari because it's too small. But by God, you'll get laid more often than anybody else if you drive one. Now, how closer to the truth can you get? So why do paunchy, rich businessmen drive a very uncomfortable, cramped car like a Ferrari and drive it themselves? Because somewhere they realize that there's a possibility of getting laid. So I have a counter motto to that. And for everybody, all the males in this room and in the world, I have a motto, which if you follow, believe me, it will be very successful. And that is men who cook get laid more often than men who pump iron. Write that down. Okay?
Thanks for the words of wisdom.
Cooking. You're not too old to try that. Remember, it absolves you of anything that you might look like and anything else that you might have been disgraced for. Because if you can cook a great meal and you can serve it in candlelight, the candlelight helps them actually imagine that you're better looking than you are.
Yeah.
So does it go other way around also?
Obviously. Why do you think you marry somebody? Not because she's great looking only. It's because she can feed you for the rest of your life with engaging food every time you're actually bored of dal roti. What you have to do, people of your and my age actually have to go back to school and learn the language that the kids are talking today.
Yes.
Because if you can't talk to them in their language that they dream in, how are you going to engage with them? Because the language that you dream in is your mother tongue. Today, the whole world is shrunk because everybody is talking the same language. It doesn't matter whether you're Swedish, whether you're Iranian, whether you're Turkish, or whether you're Timbuktu. But all the kids all over the world are hooked onto the digital medium. They are communicating with each other and they're talking a language which leaves older people out. The way it's consumed,
Yes.
but the stories don't change.
Yeah.
The technology only helps you tell the stories a little better and a little more engagement. So instead of talking in English or talking in Hindi or talking in Tamil, you're talking technology. Because all of them understand that language. That is the first language. Because that is what they've grown up with. So the stories never change, regardless of what language you speak. The stories are always engaging, and that is what you engage with. This is a huge opportunity. Do you know that everybody who has no sense, and because they're above the age of 40 and they're the ones who are running the companies, have shrunk back, cut down their budgets, and have gone into hibernation as far as advertising is concerned. Hello, guys. This is the time when you have to reach out to the people and say, we're not trying to sell you a product. We're just trying to tell you that we are standing with you. In times of great grief, loss, and bankruptcy, when a company turns around and says, what can we do for you? Forget about what you can do for us. It's a very interesting engagement, because when all this is forgotten, you will only remember those people who stood by you, who has your back. You know, I'll tell you I came from a military school. So I used to always wonder, because the government propaganda and personal propaganda is that every young boy who's standing at the border with a gun freezing his ghoulies off is actually doing it for his country. So once when I went up to the border and I was standing near Siachen, and everybody, it was minus 30 or something out there. And there was this young second lieutenant who just passed out of the IMA. And he was commanding a platoon of 15 people who are much older than him and much more experienced than he was. And he was just a rookie. He just come out of it. But he was an officer. So as an officer, he had to lead those men. So I asked him a question. I said, are you standing here with the possibility of getting shot? For what? That you could have gotten any other job. Why did you choose to do this? He says, I don't know, but I had a romantic inclination to come and serve, because my father was also in the army, so it was a tradition. So I said, so why are you standing here? Are you doing it for your country? He said, no. My country doesn't know me. I don't know my country. So why should I do it for my country? So I said, are you doing it for the government? He said, no. Why should I do it for my government? They don't know me. I said, have you doing it for your commanding officer? He said, partly, but not really. So I said, why are you standing here with the possibility of getting shot and freezing? So he says, from the man to my left and the man to my right. I said, but who's he to you? He says, he would do the same for me. So when there's a lesson in this, that as a corporate, as a company that is trying to sell a product to people, now is the time to have their backs. When you have their backs, they will be loyal to death. If you don't have their backs, and if you abandon them at the first opportunity because you're an opportunist, you will be dust. So the time is now to actually advertise and reach out to all your consumers and say, what can we do for you? Because you have kept us alive all this time. Is there something that we can do for you? And this is what we think we can do for you. We are standing with you. And at times like this, in times of war, this is a war. COVID is nothing less than a war. Everybody's stretched. Everybody's worried. And the practicality of wanting to reach out to tell your your consumers who are loyal to you, that you are loyal to them.
Yes.
It's a reciprocal thing. You expect your employees and your consumers to be loyal to death. What are you doing for them? Are you sacking half your employees? Are you taking a salary cut from chairman downwards so that you don't have to sack everybody? Are you leading by example? What is leadership? Leadership is to put yourself first on the line of fire, which is why that young boy was standing there while his men were sitting in the bunker. Because he said that I cannot tell them from the back to do something which is dangerous. I have to lead them from the front. And because they have my back, I have their back. And that's a corporate lesson. We are talking about lives here. We are talking about a warlike situation. So when you communicate, when you tell a story, you tell a story about how you're standing and holding their backs. You're not telling them, "Arey yaar, mera wo Pepsi kharido ya mera ye kharido, hame bhi salaries pay karni hai. हम भी लुढ़क जाएंगे तुम्हारे साथ."
But I think Vikram Batra, remember the Pepsi tagline, "Ye dil mange more."
Correct.
And he sacrificed himself.
No, that is all about dreams. Dil Mange Mo was not about drinking more Pepsi. It was about dreaming big, which is why it was such a catchy line and people still remember it. So let's go back to storytelling and about media. Now, I'm going to take you back to the 90s. 90s was our most creative year in advertising that I can remember, because at 90s we had no technology. And we were innovating from the seat of our pants. So we had to think of great ideas to circumvent the fact that we couldn't afford technology. So I'm going to show you some films from the 90s. And none of these kids have probably seen these films because these are very early films. But all you oldies definitely have seen this film. So can we just run that Cadbury's film, which was made by Piyush, which was written by Piyush Pandey, which made his career.
Okay.
Which made the...
Sure. We lost our tech team. Tech team, can we have the Cadbury ad, please?
कुछ खास है हम सभी में, कुछ बात है हम सभी में, बात है खास है, कुछ स्वाद है, क्या स्वाद है जिंदगी में। कैडबरीज डेयरी मिल्क, असली स्वाद जिंदगी का।
After 25 years for the first time. You know, I mean, the beauty of this film was that it had so many hidden deliveries which were not actually calculated.
Correct.
And the question that the client actually asked Piyush Pandey when he wrote the script for them was, will any Indian woman do this dressed in a frock? Now, I'm talking about 25 years ago when even wearing makeup in public was considered bad among Indian middle-class girls.
True.
They had to hide and go to college bathrooms and then put on their makeup and then come out ready for battle. But their parents would turn around and frown upon makeup, you know, and say, "Kya kar rahi hai? Bilkul behudi hai. Aise nahi karte, achhi ladkiyan," you know, kind of thing. So that was the time when this film was made. And the client said, but which Indian girl is going to be wearing a frock with a bob cut and dance wildly in front of 50,000 people in a stadium? So you know what the Indian women turned around and told them? They turned around and said, we won't have the guts to do what she did, but by God, she lives in our heart. Because not because you would do it, but because she is a role model. You would love to do that. Today, the girls will do it like a shot. They'll not even think about it. हाँ जरूर करेंगे क्या हो गया क्या बड़ी बात है. In those days, they were petrified. They said नहीं हम करेंगे नहीं पर वो हमारे दिल में है. The next film is a great lesson in constancy, which is there is no constant in the world except change. And if you don't change, you die. This film is a perfect example of that. Show me the Ericsson film, please.
Hello. What are you doing tonight?
Me?
Join me for dinner.
Sure.
See you at 8. One black coffee, please.
Ericsson mobile phones, surprisingly small.
The best part of this film was the story that you told was the story of every man. And the story of every man is, and all you women please remember this because it's very important. He gets up in the morning, has a shower, has a shave, puts on his favorite shirt, puts on a cologne, and turns around and looks into the mirror and says, today is going to be a lucky day. Now, if he doesn't start his day by looking at himself and convincing him that today he's going to get lucky, he'll go back to sleep. Why would he take the effort of spending the whole day as a loser? Unless there's dil mange mo of hope for being a winner, there is no point in your life.
True.
Okay, so the insight of this film was that. The beauty of this film was watching it today. Ericsson was the #1 brand of phones in the world, barring none. What happened to Ericsson? Why? Because the only Ericsson that you hear of nowadays is in Gujarat after lights out, because that's how they pronounce it. So the thing is that they refuse to go Android. They refuse to go digital. They were analog. And they said, नहीं, हम brand leader हैं, हमें time है, हम गुफ्तगू करेंगे, meetings करेंगे, coffee पियेंगे, you know. And the youngsters in the company were saying, sir, we're losing out on time. This is an opportunity. This is a window. We're still ahead of the pack. Let's change. And the old fuddy-duddies turned around and said, no, we've got lots of time. Why are we worried? We are brand leaders. And they died. Same thing happened in Nokia. Nobody learns from history. So the thing is that if you do not adapt to technology, you die. It's as simple as that. Everything is for the good. It's just a question of learning a new language.
So in this crisis situation, we have to look for the opportunities.
Correct. There's an opportunity in every crisis. So now I'll show you another set of films. The 3 films for Britannia which we made, which surprised even us. So let's have a look at it.
Hey, I'm Sachin. Biscuit? सपना सच कर दिखाओ ब्रिटानिया के संग
This
Wonderful.
monster was all of 3 years old. And at 3 years old, you have a mind of your own. That is before society, college, school lobotomizes you. And they lobotomize you into being conditioned to behave in a particular manner. At 3 years, they are exactly who they are. And if they want to listen to you, they'll only listen to you if you make sense. Otherwise, they couldn't care a rat. And they couldn't care who you were, whether you were the president of the world or whether you were the prime minister of this country or whether you were the Mali. If the Mali made more sense, he would be friends with the Mali. Didn't matter to anything else. Nothing, no social attachment, stigma, nothing. So what did this child teach us? This child taught us that there is a truth in innocence and in wickedry. Because he was not only innocent, he was also wicked. Because he wanted to do what he wanted to do. And there was no way that we could actually tell him what to do. So we gave him the tools of which to do whatever he wanted to do and hope like hell that he would do something that made sense to us to make a film. So Sunil Alag, who was my client at that time, turned around and said, I want this kid and I want you to do these films for me. So we said, sir, it's not possible. वो कुछ किसी का सुनने वाला नहीं है. So he says, who told you to tell him what to do? You listen to what he has to say. तुम लोग सिर्फ medium हो. बनाने वाला तो वही है. So I said, what do you mean by that? He said, I want you to follow him around for 3 days. I'm paying you enough money to do nothing but follow him around for 3 days and give him the tools with which he's supposed to have fun with. And whatever he does, you shoot. Whether he sleeps, whether he wakes up, whether he does gullies, whatever he wants to. Shoot everything that he does in the day. Then let's figure out how to put it together. So I said, but why? Don't you want to tell a story? He says, he is the story. Now, I didn't understand what he was talking about until we edited these films. and showed them to a whole bunch of housewives. The first reaction of every woman who saw this wicked idiot kid was that I want one like that. It kept from telling the truth. Sometimes the truth has its own language, and sometimes it's unparliamentary. So when you express yourself with a certain, strength, and if you don't use unparliamentary language, nobody believes that you're telling the truth. So at the cost of being notorious and being mufat, the pursuit of truth to me is the single most important thing in my life. I've got some more films, just run them. Run the whole lot.
Okay.
Okay, and whatever questions that come up, we'll say. See, because the reason why I'm showing these films is, and why they're so dated, because they're all from the 90s. A few of them are from now, but most of them are from the 90s. And the reason why I've selected them is because the tremendous storytelling and the value that they add to the brand. Because they created a value for the brand, which is called a brand value, which is what advertising is supposed to do. And the value is only translated into human values. Good guy, bad guy, indifferent guy. You know, what kind of guy is he? When you ask your brand value, the question to ask is, what kind of a guy is your brand? Is he sympathetic? Is he compassionate? Is he generous? Is he helpful? Does he have your back? You know, these are the questions that you ask when you ask for brand value. You know, brand value is not some esoteric term in the pie in the sky which you do through research. Research doesn't give you brand value. What brand value gives you is your heart. What do you think of Pepsi? What is the brand value of a stupid carbonated drink? It is that you are 16 years old, you don't believe in rules, and you want to break all the rules that you can possibly get hold of, and you are young, and you're idealistic, and you're fearless. That is your brand value of Pepsi. They've lost the plot, of course. But while we were still doing Pepsi, we retained that brand because Vibha Rishi, who was my client, had one saying. She said, you know, Prahlad, you epitomize the brand. So whatever you do instinctively is my brand. Even though you're much older than what my brand, segment is. You're bloody 12 years old and you're a juvenile delinquent. Let's see the films.
घुमड़ घुमड़ कर जीरा गरजे दिल ये डोले झूम के बोले तारे छूले प्यास बड़ी है और भी बढ़ ले अरे खोल के बंधन तोड़ के ताले ये दिल मांगे मोर
ये दिल मांगे मोर
आहा यही है राइट चॉइस बेबी
I'm your new neighbor. Can I have a layer Pepsi?
Yeah, sure. Yes! Oops. और कुछ चलेगा?
नहीं, Pepsi नहीं है तो.
ना, no problem.
यही है right choice, baby.
You okay in there?
ये लहर पेप्सी
That must be Sanju.
संजू
Hi, I'm Sanjana. Got another Pepsi?
Sure.
Hey भाई साहब, कहीं पेप्सी मिलेगा? This is a cricket ground. Okay.
Pepsi.
Hey, players only. Chawla, food lane. Okay. Yes.
Sachin. Oh, morning sir.
ये सचिन क्या ढूंढ रहा है? हाँ, सौरभ, पीले
सौरभ
मैडम सचिन, you're on.
On? Hi Sachin. Sachin. I'll take it from here. Thanks. Thanks. All the best.
It became a part of the language of that time. Dil Mange Mo was quoted, the greatest quote was this helicopter pilot who had gone on to Siachen. and they had taken a peek, and the television interviewer asked him, after this what? So he says, Dil Mange Maun. And unfortunately, the next day he died, but that was what it was. It is a concept of a manzil. Dil Mange Maun is about reaching another manzil. It wasn't about selling Pepsi. And that is what gave it power.
I mean, your storytelling has to be very, very strong.
Yes.
You can even sell a kuda like gold. If you're storytelling, I know, Prahlad.
Yes.
You can sell even dirt like gold if you can weave the correct kind of stories. I don't know if we have got enough time. We can go on.
I'm going to show one more film.
Okay, sure.
I want to show the Google film made by Amit Sharma. Amit Sharma is the guy who made Badaiyo.
Achha, okay.
And he made a whole lot of ad films, and he's brilliant in terms of storytelling. There is no better person like him. So if you can find the Google film and show it, I would love the audience to see it.
ये मैं, ये यूसुफ, लंगोटिया यार सी मेरा। लाहौर में हमारे घर के सामने एक बड़ा बाग था। उस बाग का गेट बाबा आदम ने बनवाया। रोज शाम को हमने वहाँ पतंगे उड़ानी और उसके बाद जाके यूसुफ के दुकान से झझरिया चुरा के खानी।
झझरिया?
मेरा साहब नमस्ते। नमस्ते, मेरी पोती मुंबई वाली। और बेटे क्या हाल चाल है?
की तंग गली फिर से कूद फांदे, छोटी छोटी मीठी चोरी गांठ लेके बांधे।
हेलो अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
फाजिल स्वीट्स?
हाँ जी। दादाजान, दिल्ली से किसी की कॉल है।
हेलो,
यूसुफ अंकल?
कौन?
जी मैं सुमन बोल रही हूँ दिल्ली से, आपके बचपन के दोस्त बलदेव जी की पोती। याद है बचपन में आप दोनों झझरिया चुरा के खाते थे?
बचपन की तंग गली फिर से कूद फांदे, छोटी छोटी मीठी चोरी काट लेके बांधे। एक पतंग सा उड़ता था परिंदों की तरह, परिंदों की तरह, परिंदों की तरह। एक दौर था मन मन मोर था, एक दौर था मन मन मोर था।
पार्टीशन के वक्त हम रातों रात हिंदुस्तान आ गए।
दादू?
यूसुफ दी बड़ी आजादी।
कागजों की कश्तियों में डूबा रहता था, झांकती खिड़कियों में उलझा रहता था। वो भी क्या दौर था, मन पे न जोर था। एक दौर था मन मन मोर था, एक दौर था मन मन मोर था।
भैया थोड़ा जल्दी।
मन मोर।
हाँ जी, कौन? हैप्पी बर्थडे यारा। यूसुफ, ओए यूसुफ, मेरे पल्लू, ओए यूसुफ यार।
Yeah, what I want to do is I want to tell you that the Pepsi film with Sachin in Behind a Mask was very special because the kids were not actors. They were from a Basti. Because my crew wanted to take Basti kids, and we had a huge fight with Pepsi about who the kids should be. And they said, but these are not our consumers because they can't afford Pepsi. I said, it doesn't matter. We are talking about dreams. Who has a bigger dream? A guy living in a high rise who wants to be a Sachin, or a boy living in a basti playing cricket in front of a tree who wants to be Sachin? Who has a bigger dream? So what does it Pepsi actually represent? It doesn't represent whether they drink Pepsi or not. It represents what is the bigger dream. So they let us do that. Actually, they allowed us to make the film with the basti kids. They weren't actors. We found them in the tree itself. They were playing cricket. And we never told them that it was Sachin behind the mask until he took the mask off. Thank you very much.
The world is here. The world is here.
Hello, my name is Elvis Sequeira.
मैं हूं मलकीत सिंह. Hi, my name is Sathak. आप सुन रहे हैं ग्रेटर नोएडा का अपना सामुदायिक रेडियो स्टेशन सुनो शारदा 90.8 FM.
The world is here.
The world is here. The world is here. The world is here at Sharda University. Where are you?